Hi, I'd like to welcome you to week 2 of the St. Aidan's Institute course on liturgy or liturgics. The first week has been very successful, and I'm really glad to see all the hard work that's being done in the classroom. This kind of a class can be disruptive for some folks because there is often the assumption that the way we're doing church right now is the way it's always been done, and it's the only way it'll ever be done. But we're seeing in our readings of the historical narrative of the development of liturgy that this really hasn't always been the way, that what we have is the result of a significant process of development that's gone on over time. But it's also a process that's been done very carefully. It's not been one that's haphazard or trendy or faddish. Whenever those kinds of developments take place, they almost always end up dying by the side of the road. And there's really a core of liturgy that has taken a much longer time and much more care in its development. We saw in the first week with the early house churches and Christianity in hiding and the way worship was done there. And now this week we're moving into the medieval period, the High Middle Ages, and we're looking at really the kind of the triumph of Augustine and his emphasis on sin and his emphasis on the separation of the holy from the profane. Really, his doing that is not entirely a theological exercise. A lot of it is his efforts at synthesizing the Christian faith, or coordinating or bringing together the Christian faith with the teachings of Plato. And Plato being one of the great, if not the great, Greek philosopher, there was always that belief in these dichotomies where one is good, one is bad. And one of the big Greek dichotomies is things of the spirit are good and things of the material world are bad. The contemplation of the divine is good. Wrestling in the mud to help other people is bad. So anything that's temporal or worldly is always seen as a negative thing in Greek thinking. And it really influences Augustine's thinking to the point where he starts to really see us more as sinners than as redeemed sinners. He sees us more as living in a depraved world and being the ones who will redeem the world, or ones who live in a creation that God once said was good. So that whole thinking not only influenced theology, but it also had a tremendous impact on liturgy. And the gradual but almost inevitable removal of the laity from participation in the service and in receiving the elements kind of shows that whole thought process being taken to its logical end. It won't really start to be undone in a meaningful way till we hit the Reformation period, but for now, you really want to see how it developed, why it developed, what was the mindset of the people that were engaged in these liturgical practices, and how did they really want to emphasize the spiritual in a Platonic sense, but then also with the German influence and the mystical sense that goes with that. So it's a very interesting process of development. It matters tremendously because when we come to the English Reformation and the establishment of English liturgy and Anglican liturgy as we understand it today, all of this is going to play a role. So it may look like boring and tedious history, but stick with it and keep up the great work you're doing in the classroom. I'm really enjoying our conversations that we're having, and we're having a great class together, and I want to thank you all for it. So God bless you, and I'll see you in the classroom this week.